Okay, folks, I want to welcome each and every one of you to the next installation, if you will, of the Money Talks series here at the ANA National Money Talks Convention here in Orlando, Florida. My name is Randy Campbell, and many of you may already know that I've been introducing speakers for Fun for 39 straight years. This year, Fun is sponsoring the ANA show here this March in Orlando, and the Money Talks series of educational seminars includes our next speaker, Mr. Bob Jaques. Bob has been interested in coins and numismatic history for over 40 years. He's past president of the Madison County Coin Club. He's written articles on coins and their history and attended specialized classes on coins. Bob has won 3 related exhibit awards at Fun and is a life member of the American Numismatic Association. He's a veteran of the U.S. Navy, where he served in the Navy as a meteorologist with the U.S. Naval Weather Service in California. He enjoys church activities, flying, numismatics, golf, and a bunch of other things, including spending time with his family. Today, Bob's topic is foreign coins made in the U.S. Mint during World War II. And I can tell you as a professional grader for ICG that we see a lot of these coins in the grading room over the course of a year. By a lot, I mean a few dozen, not several thousand. And we see them from time to time. And of course, Bob is a specialist in these areas. And we know there's a lot of collector interest in these particular kinds of coins, not just from former servicemen, but from the numismatic fraternity at large. And I can think of no person who is better qualified to talk on this very interesting subject than the man we have here today, Mr. Bob Jaques. Let's give him a round of applause, folks. Bob, I'll leave this here for you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Welcome to the ANA show. We're talking about foreign coins made in U.S. mints during World War II. A lot of people don't realize that while we're fighting a two-theater war in Europe and in the Pacific, that we're doing coins for foreign countries. But how did we get started in this? Well, I became interested in this when I was at an antique store many years ago in southern Indiana, where I grew up, and I found this book by Whitman, printed in 1963. And it's called Foreign Coins Struck at U.S. Mints, and it just kind of captivated my interest. And so I picked that up and started reading through it, and found out that the United States Mint has been making coins since 1876 for foreign governments. The first one that we made was the Act of January 29, 1874. Congress passed this act allowing the director of the mint to make coins for foreign countries if they requested it. And you can see the provisions were that any foreign country could apply. There was no restrictions at all. And the cost was to be the cost of labor, the materials, and equipment as determined by the director of the mint. He had his own costing system, and the countries would pay a fee on top of all of those qualifications. And then the third requirement, which was important, was the minting of other countries' coins could not interfere with the required coinage of the United States. And what was the first one that was made was for, anybody know what country? Venezuela in 1876. And this is the pictures of them. So 1 and 2.5 centavos. They're dated, as you can see, 1876. They're made in Philadelphia. And many of the coins that were made in foreign mints, for foreign countries in the U.S., did not have mint marks. Some later on in World War II had the P mint mark, but this early coin had no mint mark. It was made in copper, nickel, and zinc. And you can see that the quantities there, 10 million of the 1 centavo and 2 million of the 2.5. These coins are not very expensive. I found a copy of each at the Fun Show a couple of years ago, and I paid about $10 a piece for each one of them. So if you're looking for something to collect, it's an interesting area. United States always made round coins, but during the advent of World War II and the countries that requested coinage to be made, we changed. We made coins that had hexagonal. We made them with a hole for the first time, had diamond shaped, had a crimped edge coin, and all these were new designs to be made for our designers at the Mint to have to come up with these designs, because in most cases, the countries themselves did not submit dies. We had to make the dies. One of my favorite is this hexagonal. It's a Belgian Congo coin, and as you can see here, it's dated 1943, very plain front with just an elephant, and then back here it has the Congo, Belgian Congo, and it's in both languages, in Belgian and English. And it was no mint mark, made in Philadelphia, a 2 franc coin. These were made of brass, and as you can see, there's 25 million minted. I think it's a neat looking coin, and when I get through, we have some time, I brought some examples, original examples of some of the coins I'm talking about today, and I have one here, and it's kind of a neat coin. But that's hexagonal. Then Fiji, the 1/2 penny and the 1 penny had holes in them. That was the first time the U.S. ever made a coin with a hole in it. They're made of brass, 1942 and 1943. Of course, Fiji was a British Commonwealth country, and these had a S mint mark. Right here is where the S is, and as you can see, the 1/2 penny only had 250,000. They're relatively hard to find today. You can see them from time to time, and a lot of collectors who deal in foreign coins haven't differentiated between some of these low mintage coins and just having a coin from the Fiji Islands, but they are available. Curaçao is a country off of Venezuela, and is part of the Netherlands Commonwealth. This is the diamond shape that I mentioned a minute ago. As you can see, it's got all 4 corners. Here's the value, 5 cents. There's no mint mark or privy mark. It's made of copper nickel, 5 cents, made in Philadelphia. You can see the quantity, almost 8,600,000 made. And these are relatively easy to find among world coin dealers. Now, if at any time during the presentation, if you have a question or comment, please raise your hand. This is one of my favorite unusual coins. It's a crimped edge coin. And again, Ethiopia and the countries that I mentioned didn't give us the dies, so we had to make those. Made in Philadelphia, has no mint mark, is 25 centimes, and if you can read this, I'm sure it says that somewhere. And it's dated in Amharic, which is a part of the Arabic language. But even though it's dated in that language, 1936, these were actually minted in 1944. And they're made of bronze. They made 2 styles. They made this one with the crimped edge, and they made one with a round edge. So you've got variety 1 and variety 2 for the same denomination, both made in bronze. This one here is a little harder to find than the plain round coin. And that completes an example of each of the different style and shapes of coins. When the Japanese after they invaded Pearl Harbor and attacked it, their next goal was to invade and attack the Philippines, because their great goal was to have a greater Asia owned and operated by Japan. They had 3 countries that were in their way: the United States, Great Britain, and the Netherlands. Those were the 3 countries that had major interest in the South Pacific. When the Japanese got to New Guinea and were starting to invade half that country, the powers to be in Australia were concerned there might be a Japanese invasion of Australia. And of course, you know, when you have coinage in a community, that coinage, if it doesn't change, is great confidence bearing. Like in Europe, when Germany confiscated or took over countries, they took their silver coins and kept the silver, and they made them out of zinc. And the populace didn't like that, and a lot of bad thoughts about that. So when the Japanese were getting close to Australia, the Royal Mint sent the dies for these coins to the San Francisco Mint by submarine. And these were made in 1943 and 44. As you can see, we have a 3 pence here. The S is right there. On the shilling, the S is right there above the N. And the S on the 6 pence is right there in the center. They were actually made in San Francisco. And the only thing that the engravers did in San Francisco was add the S to the Australian dies. And then here's a florin, and the S is right there above the date. Beautiful coins, the first time that we'd made British coins in the United States. As you can see, the 3 pence and 6 pence were made in San Francisco and Denver. You can find those coins with the D mint mark, and the florin and the shilling in San Francisco only. I have examples of those up here as well. We all know about the 1943 zinc penny, the white penny they call it, the steel penny, and the government in Belgium, in exile in Britain, requested the United States to make some kind of a coin for them and to be used. And so we agreed to make them a 2-franc coin. And we had a lot of planchets left over. As you can see, we had 25 million planchets left over. I find that hard to believe that was left over. But anyway, 25 million. And you can see right here, of course, obviously, here's the penny. But here's the coin right here. It is a 2-franc piece made in Philadelphia, dated 1944, 2-franc. And I have a nice example up here. Oops. These are not really rare. You could buy them 10 years ago for $1 a piece or 50 cents. Now you're kind of looking at the $8 to $15 range if you can find them. And but it's an interesting piece. Again, there's no mint mark. This is considered the first Allied coin used or made for Europe. It's hard to believe that with all the ill feelings we had towards Cuba, that we made some of their coins. In World War II, we made in 1943 1 centavo and 5 centavo piece, and no mint mark, made in Philadelphia, made of brass, and you can see the quantities listed here. These are relatively hard to find. What's interesting about these 2 coins is it's a type year only. They changed the design after 1942, and after these were made in 43, they changed the design just a little bit from 44 on. So it's a 1-year type if you collect Cuban coins. And all the time they're doing this, we're fighting a two-theater war, which is amazing to me because metals are hard to come by. Fiji was, of course, you know, is a British Commonwealth country, and we made coins for them as well. Some of those are really hard to find. All 1942 and 43 have an S mint mark only. Here's the mint mark on the 6 pence. Here's the mint mark on the shilling, and the florin is right there. Okay, can you all see that? And as you can see, the quantities, there's not large quantities made of either denomination. The florin, of course, is by far the hardest to find. There was none made in Denver, and you can find these for less than $15, $20 a piece for the 6 pence and the shilling. The florin might be as high as 50 to 100, depending upon the condition. This is an interesting coin, too. This is a 1944 2-franc brass coin made in Philadelphia, no mint mark. What's interesting is that we made 50 million of these things, and they were all sent to Algeria. None of them were sent to France because 1944, of course, France was still under the majority of German occupation. So these were sent to Algeria, and when you study the history of this coin, no one knows what happened to them. But they never really circulated freely in France. So you can find them, but they don't know how they got from Algeria to wherever they went. Some people believe that France had quite a few colonies of its own prior to World War II, and most people think that these circulated in those colonies. This is generally classified as a military issue, and again, 50 million of them were made. Interesting thing about the brass, I showed you several brass coins that we made. All the brass coins that we made were made from melted down shell cases. French Indo-China is one of the countries that was owned by France up until 1940, before the Germans invaded France. The French government in Paris, the Paris Mint, made the Indo-Chinese coins. After they were taken over, they contacted the U.S. Mint and asked that we make their coinage for them. And what they did is they sent us the dies that they had used, and we just changed the dates. And as you can see here, it's a very busy coin, isn't it? But right here is the mint mark, an S and an S here. 10 centimes and 20. They're made of copper nickel, and those are the only two denominations that we made. And I've got one of those to give away for a little drawing after a while, so maybe you can pick that up. They're not very hard to find. I see them quite readily for $1 or less. But they have a great history behind them. This is one of my favorite coins. This is a Greenland 5 Kroner dated 1944. You can see the date here. The minted in brass. This is the lowest single coin made during World War II for a foreign government, only 100,000, made in Philadelphia with no mint mark. And I'm going to show you a picture of the lowest mintage and the highest mintage coin that we made during World War II. These are very hard to find. The last one I saw on eBay was about $300. I saw one of the coins show about a year ago for $190, but it was because of the brass, it discolored. But it's a hard coin to find. It's worthy of any collection if you like to collect unusual. And it's only 1 year that this was made as well. We made coins for Liberia, which is in Africa, and made in Philadelphia. No mint mark. The only year that we made those were 1941, made of copper nickel. And as you can see here, the mintages are quite low. And I have one example up here. And I don't know how they got an uneven number like 812,500. It just doesn't ring a bell when you're used to even numbers. But they're a good-looking coin. They're relatively hard to find. You know, when you're talking 75 years or more for some of these coins, they are hard to find. The Netherlands is a complicated country with their coins. And of course, the Netherlands in Europe, and then they owned a lot of countries, Suriname, Curaçao, the Dutch East Indies in the Pacific. And when the Japanese were taking over those places, they came to the United States. And of course, when they invaded Germany and the Netherlands was taken over, their exiled government in England asked us to make coins for them. And we did that. We made, these are extremely rare. We made a dime, a 10 cent, 44D, 45D, and 45P. You can't find them anywhere. They are on the mint records, but they're just unavailable. The last I found out is that during the Lend-Lease program, we loaned money to a lot of foreign governments, as you know. And so they minted these coins, and then they turned around and melted them and took that silver to pay as a reparation for what we had loaned them. They made a 25 cent coin and the 1 guilder dated 1945p. And they were all melted and the silver used to repay the U.S. for the lead lease. And these coins all had an Acorn privy. Do you know what a privy is? A privy is an identifying mark other than a mint mark. For example, on the Netherlands coins, they had an acorn on one side, and then they had the mint on the other. And when you see the acorn, that means it was made for the Netherlands. I'll show you some pictures of the Dutch colonies that I mentioned, Curaçao and Suriname and the Dutch East Indies, and they have a palm tree here and then the mint mark over here, and that distinguishes those two. Other than that, they're almost identical to the Netherlands coins. Here's an interesting variety. 1944, made in Philadelphia, has the acorn. And the acorn means that was made for the Netherlands. You can see it right here. And now they put a P on there for Philadelphia. Not all the coins that were made had a mint mark, but some of them did. And it's what determined what had the mint mark and what didn't. I've never been able to find out. But what's interesting is there's two varieties. This one here is a regular coin. See how the legend comes around and stops at the neck? Do you all see that? And this one over here, see how the legend comes around and stops halfway? You all see that? This one here, this variety here, was discovered in the early 50s, so no one knows how many of each were manufactured. But this one here is very rare. Sorry about that. It's very rare, and I've tried for years to find one. And I finally talked to a guy that was a French dealer at a fun show a couple of years ago, and he had one. And I said, out of curiosity, what are you asking for it? 900 euros. So I didn't get that. But that's a rare coin. As you can see, the combined mintage is over 105 million. But again, there's no record of the difference of the two. The largest mintage between the war years, 41-45, was this 1945p Dutch East Indies. Now, because it's a colony, it has the palm tree. See the palm tree? And then it has the P on that side. And 400 million. Up at that time, that was the largest single minting of any coin for anybody, including our own country, 400 million. These are very, very easy to find. They're not very expensive, usually $5 or less for an uncirculated copy. So to go from 100,000 in the Greenland issue to this one, it's a big spread, isn't it? The Philippines is an interesting one. Of course, we've always made coins for the Philippines, and then, of course, when the Japanese came, we quit making Philippine coins. And then in 1944, when the Philippines was repatriated, we started making them again. The 1 centavo piece here, the mint mark, you can't see it very well, is right there. It's an S. And then we had the 5 and the 10, the 20 and 50 centavos were made of 75% silver. And the mint mark on all 5 examples are all right there on the lower left-hand side. And you can find a D on some of the 20 centavos and the 10 centavos. And I've got some of those as part of my drawing too, so some of you can walk away with one of those. The most elusive coins for me, we made coins for Peru. And first of all, since I don't speak Spanish, I found that very difficult. The Peru 20 brass centavo coin. As you can see here, Peru, 1943. But this 1943 coin was made in Peru. You see how it's got the numeric date. The 20 centavo piece on both coins has the same reverse. But the one made in the United States, and I'm sorry for it's hard to see, but it's the only one I had. But the years 1943 are spelled out in Spanish. 1943 in Spanish. You see the difference? Numeric, made in Peru, and when it's spelled out, like here, and you can see the differences here by saying, 2 before 42 tre or quattro for 4. But this is the most elusive coin for me to find. It shows here 500,000 were made at the S in San Francisco, and I've got this one I have is an S, and I looked at coin shows for years here at the Fun Show, and I went to the A&A show in New Orleans, all the dealers just like here, and couldn't find it. And a friend of mine lives in Tucson, went to a Tucson coin club, and they had a grab box for 50 cents a piece. He said, "Hey Bob, I found your coin." So go figure. But that was the hardest one for me to find to put in my collection. During World War II, and I picked 41 to 45 because those were the years of the United States involvement in World War II. Of course, it started in 39, but we weren't involved at that time. These are 23 countries that we made coins for during that time. As you can see, it's a lot. It's really a lot. And to give you an idea of how the mints did, the mintage by the mints for the 41-45 years, Philadelphia made the most. They made 53% of all the foreign coins during that time. Denver made 13%, and San Francisco made 34%. Liberia, the U.S. money in 1943 was declared legal tender, so they no longer made their own coins, even for themselves, and so we never made them after that. 4 countries that we made the coins for, only did it one time, and that's Belgium. We made that Belgian franc out of the steel penny Planchet. That hexagon coin with the Belgian Congo with the elephant on it. That French 2 franc coin that I showed you. And that Greenland, those 4 countries, we only made one coin for them, and that was at this time, and those 4 that I showed you. The Belgian 2 franc coin, as I mentioned, was an emergency monetary issue authorized by the Belgian government in exile. The Greenland coin is sometimes called a 5 Kroner gold coin because of its unusual brass color, which is the only brass colored coin they ever had in Greenland. But it circulated until about 1955. And that's like trying to find a 1909 SVDB today in circulation. You're not going to do it. I've got a complete typeset of all these coins, and to give you an idea of how many there are, a complete typeset is 161. But as I pointed out, there was 3 different style dimes from the Netherlands that were manufactured. Of course, I don't have those. So if you take less the melted coins, there's 157. And all the brass coins I mentioned were made at U.S. mints for foreign countries, were made from shell cases. And I recently came across a press release from the U.S. Treasury dated January 30th, 1945, giving an account of coins made in 1944 on friendly nations. Said here, these countries found themselves faced with sharply expanding coin needs due to the presence of Allied troops and their own requirements. And the war destroyed or shut off all their minting facilities, and that's why they came to the United States. According to Miss Nellie Ross, the director of the Mint, 3 mints turned out at cost. They didn't even charge them a fee for that. They did that as a service for these friendly countries, just at cost. Nearly 800 million coins just in 1944 alone. And during this same period of time, the United States mints made almost 3 billion coins used for domestic use. The year 1944 was the largest mint output in its 152 years history, and this is from a 1945 report. Look how many they make today. They make in the billions. And let's see. Ms. Ross stated that the consumption of metals by the mints exceeded 15,000 tons a day in 1944. And most of the foreign countries provided their own metal. We didn't have that to spare and to sell. And she placed the face value of coins minted in 1944 to $121 million. And so that's just kind of an interesting topic you don't think about. One neat thing about collecting coins that I enjoy is the fact that you can make up your own little collection of something. And I like coins with a story behind them. And when I found that little book, which I have up here, and I read that had a neat story behind it. And so with that said, thank you very much, and please come up and take a look at the coins that I brought. And I read behind it. And so with that said, thank you very much, and please come up and take a look at the coins that I brought.